Hi everyone, I'm Jacob from How to Become, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at an introduction to in-tray exercises. So what is in-tray? In-tray is a paper-based exercise which simulates an office environment. The goal of the exercise is to be similar to a normal working day for the job which you are applying for. Therefore, in-tray is an excellent way to measure a candidate's ability and see whether they work in a way which is conducive to the job and business as a whole. In-tray exercises are timed assessments, and candidates are usually given somewhere between 1 and 2 hours to complete them. In a sense, the in-tray exercise is like a role-play exercise. You are asked to assume a role, detailed in the background information section of the exercise. Then, under the specification given, you are expected to complete the tasks presented to you. Generally speaking, this involves being given a collection of tasks to complete. Your job is not only to complete these tasks, but also to prioritize them in an order which means you're most likely to complete them all in time. Prioritization is an incredibly important part of both in-tray and e-tray exercises. Different pieces of work will have varying deadlines. Likewise, you might find a piece of work later in your assessment which has a tighter deadline. Therefore, it might be the case that this newer piece of work needs to take precedence over everything else, which can be put to one side for the time being. As for the type of work you'll be doing, this may vary. Generally speaking, the work won't differ too much in format from the job you're applying for. However, the role that you will be expected to fill can depend on the individual exercise that you have been given. For example, some in-tray exercises will place you in the role of a teacher. You won't be expected to take any lessons, but instead you will handle administrative duties. This might involve organising meetings, reading and responding to letters, or other kinds of tasks. You won't need any prior knowledge of the role that you're heading into, however. Everything you need to know will be given to you in the background information stage of the exercise. The first thing to know about the in-tray exercise is that the entire assessment is timed. From the moment you begin reading the background information, you'll be under time constraints to prioritize and complete the tasks. The tasks themselves will take the form of multiple choice questions, which will be based on the items and documents you are given throughout the exercise. For example, one document may contain a letter asking you to organize a meeting between 3 members of staff. You will likely be given each of the 3 staff members' timetables and must decide on a slot which is suitable for all of them. The answer options will appear in multiple choice format, so you need to pick from one of them before continuing on to the next task. This is the format of the entire in-tray exercise. The number of documents that you can be presented with varies depending on the exercise. Some exercises might contain lots of small tasks to complete, in which case you might be expected to deal with up to 30 documents or items. Other exercises might be more complex, perhaps requiring you to read a long letter and analyze it carefully. In this case, you might only be faced with 10 documents or items. Most in-tray exercises contain between 10 and 30 documents that you need to deal with. Here are some potential types of document that you might have to read and interpret during an in-tray exercise. These are calendars, telephone messages, reports, organizational charts, emails, documents regarding policy, letters, information regarding personnel, memos, and letters of complaint. So let's look at how you'll be assessed. Some in-tray assessments will have an essential theme hidden within them. This will be some kind of event or concept related to the workplace, which isn't necessarily mentioned in the background information. For example, a lot of the letters and requests you receive might point towards a merger involving the company you're playing a role with in the exercise. Not all in-tray exercises will contain this, but be sure to keep an eye out for any potential hidden themes as soon as possible. If you do spot any, keep them in mind when giving your answers, since the hidden themes might have an impact on your decision making. Once you've completed the in-tray exercise, you might be interviewed by the employer to justify your choices. Here, try to remember the core competencies that were outlined in the job description, the ethos of the company, as well as other general principles such as prioritization. So now let's look at what the employer is looking for. The in-tray exercise can be used to assess a wide range of different skills. Here are a few to keep in mind when practicing the exercise, as well as when you sit the full assessment. If you can meet these criteria, you should have a good chance of scoring highly in the in-tray exercise. So first we have prioritization. The first thing you'll need to do before starting any of the tasks is prioritize your work. You'll need to carefully analyze the deadlines for each piece of work, as well as how big the task will be. Then there's analysis and comprehension. Each task will require you to read and absorb information from a text, then choose an answer based on the data you've analysed. Therefore, it's important that you refine your analysis skills so that you have a better chance of passing the in-tray assessment. Then we have decision making. When prioritising a piece of work or deciding on the best course of action to take in an answer, you'll need to have strong decision-making skills. In other words, you need to be able to make decisions quickly and decisively based on the data that you have. And finally, we have attitude. Some of the tasks in the in-tray exercise will contain moral quandaries or other workplace issues. The way you answer these questions will tell the employer a lot about your attitude. For this reason, be sure to choose answers which suitably match the ethos of the company that you are applying for. Now let's look at answering the questions. Whatever the question type is, you need a general procedure for how to deal with it. Try keeping the following in mind when first reading a task during the in-tray exercise. Firstly, what type of document is it? The type of document which you receive will have an impact on the type of task you're given. For example, if you receive a letter of complaint, the likelihood is that you'll need to judge the information in the letter and then forward it to the suitable individuals. Then, how big is the document? The length and density of the document will mean that the tasks surrounding it take more time to complete. For example, if you're given a report, it will probably take more time to obtain the key information from it than a series of clear charts. Make sure you keep track of how long each task will take. When's the deadline? The documents may come with deadlines within the assessment, so you might start your in-tray exercise at 11:30 a.m. and finish at 1:30 p.m. However, you might have a task within the exercise which needs to be completed before 12 p.m. Make sure you take note of the deadlines for each piece of work. Generally, larger tasks should be finished first, but always make sure that every task is completed prior to the deadline. Next, what's the task? As previously mentioned, you'll receive a number of tasks to complete during the exercise. These will make use of one or more of the documents, so it's important that you have all to hand when considering what your answer should be. Make sure that you read all of the relevant documents before choosing an answer or course of action. Next, what kind of document is it? Are you expected to give a yes or no answer, or do you have to choose from a range of courses of action? Do you need to rank the most and least effective answer options? Take note of these before you jump into your answer. And finally, does my answer match the core competencies? Depending on the job that you're applying for, there might be a set of core competencies or skills that your employer has listed. Make sure that you incorporate these into your answers so you could come across as the best possible match for your employer.